everyone. Welcome to Beat 'em Up Wrestling. We are reviewing the Dark Side of the Ring, Jimmy Snuka, Nancy Argentino story.
Yeah.
Yeah, we heard about this back when it went back on trial.
Yeah.
And at that time, I think Tamina Snuka was still in NXT. She was like a rising star.
No, I think it was after that. I think she might have just came over.
She might have, yeah.
She might have. It might have been like right around the same time she might have came over, because that's like 2016, 2015.
Yeah, it was 2015.
Yeah, I feel like she's been around there longer.
Well, she was there before that with the Usos too, but then at NXT on this run, she was kind of like starting to get a little bit of momentum in the NXT. From what I remember, I could be completely wrong, but
yeah, there was a lot of controversy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people talking about it. Yeah, it brought up a how many years? 20-something-year-old, 25-year-old, right?
Yeah, because this happened in I want to say like it happened in the mid to late 80s, and then it didn't come back. It didn't rise back up till like 2015.
Yeah, so it was a while, but yeah, it was kind of hard to watch.
30 years actually.
After everything that we WWE has been going through in the last week, with a lot of releases, and then seeing what McMahon potentially had his hands in and of helping Snuka get out of what had happened. It was also hard to hear people say good things about him, because they said he was a good guy. But okay, so like if you guys go back, you see a New Jack thing, and the guy actually had like an experience, like, oh, he was a good cook, he used to cook for blah blah blah. He actually had like a situation.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but in this one, they said he was a good guy, but they didn't even give us a situation where he was a good guy.
Well, no, they talked about how he helped break down the ring with the nasty boy. I think this was in After Dark when he starts talking about that.
But even just that though, but like he lived for the sport though. Yeah. Like there was nothing else but him, but the sport. And I feel like outside of the sport, there wasn't really much to showcase for the guy.
I mean, he helped out Fatu when he was the But
who also had issues to why he went to wrestling, because he was also aggressive.
But no, I mean, here's the thing: when somebody says they were a good guy, a guy's not going to be an asshole 24/7, and depending on the situation that they're in, if he's in wrestling and he loves wrestling, he's going to be a good guy. And,
to guys.
And if he's at home, and everybody knew that he did cocaine and he was a cocaine addict, then it was out there, and people did know that Nancy was being abused. People brought that up, that she had black eyes and all this stuff, and her sisters and her family were always concerned about her, to the point where they kept on worrying about her being on the road. And during this whole time, Snuka was married, and she was just the person that was supposed to keep him in line.
She was a mistress, but kept them in line.
Yeah, but that's what WWE was okay with that whole thing happening, because nobody else wanted to babysit Snuka, because they knew once he started
dabbling,
getting the cocaine and mixing hash and coke together, and then
it was a lot. It was just a lot. It was hard to hear. It was sad to hear. It was sad to hear the brutality of what happened to her.
Yeah.
Just a flat out denial still, kind of, when they talked to him.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, it's like, he was like, oh, she fell. And, it's like, it was the weirdest conversations. And then the denial from the police department about, like, the transcripts where, like, they were talking about, they had to sit down with Snuka and Vince, and there was transcripts, and all of a sudden there's this hour gap of time. And
as soon as Vince comes in, they stop recording.
It must not have been too important. That's what he said. And it's just like,
so you kind of get this feeling that the small town where they were filming WWE in was in the pocket of Vince, and once Vince came, he's like, hey, I don't want my star to get
here's the briefcase.
Because remember, look what happened with the Benoit thing when McMahon could no longer hide it. It hurt the business. It really brought attention to, like, hey, these guys are dabbling with drugs, have aggression, have depression, have brain injuries, and it really hurt the business. And then if this would have came out in '86, McMahon was probably like, this is going to hurt the business.
Yeah, they definitely said he was like he was like a shooting star to stardom. But yeah, it's no matter how much you tried though, as you go into here after that part, like, he starts to fizzle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like you wasted all this money or whatever you did with the town to invest in saving this wrestler, And eventually he just kind of ended up going the indie route anyways and fizzling out his career. So it's like, justification, like, of his actions, there isn't one. And then, go ahead.
Because they never gave him the help. I mean, this guy potentially, I think the evidence, I'm just going to say this is my opinion. There's no proof of it. He was going to get his day in court, but then he ended up dying of cancer. I believe he did murder her. But this is just my opinion. So,
my opinion's the same. I think he murdered her, and I think he was playing. Once again, my opinion, I think he was full of shit when he went into court. Not saying his cancer was full of shit. The fact that he acted like he didn't know where he was at, because I saw the interviews where he was at cons and stuff like that, just a little bit. And, as somebody who had dementia in their family, even 6 to 8 months, he wouldn't not know where he was at. He would have had onset then, and it would have been hard to carry conversation. And the conversations he carried at the time, not even a year before that, were spot on conversations. Yeah. And you would start seeing the drifting and things like that. So for me, it was really hard. And then they had footage of him, marking on doing a wrestling match. And it was all marked for him to do his moves. But even then, coordination with just very mild onset dementia, there's hesitations. And then there's the wrong footing. And this, like I said, this is somebody, my grandmother had dementia, and it was hard to watch, and it was progressive, and it was long. But I also know of people, that have gone through it a lot quicker. But like I said, it's not quicker to the point where it's boom, 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 where he's walking in by himself still. He's still walking. And God, you should see, these people are like bricks when they walk or they fall. They don't remember how to use any motor function. So at the end of the day, when I saw him going into the court at that age, I'm like, yeah, the cancer's beating his ass. He looks sick, But to say he wasn't there, it's like you could have at least, you're going to die. At least take accountability before you die to say, you know what, something happened. And something happened, and I was under the influence, and I'm sorry this happened, and I'm sorry to her family. It's still not like pleading the fifth, but still,
Yeah,
could have done something.
He showed up to the funeral wearing tank top and shorts and flip flops.
Maybe they should cut a promo.
And just went up to her casket and said, "Wow, she looks terrible," and walked out.
Yeah, and then the Undertaker was like, "Yeah, it was hard for us to actually make her look good because of all the ligature marks around her neck."
And then there was multiple blunt force
abrasions.
trauma,
it's just like.
Yeah. But
it was it was hard to stomach. It was
I
bad.
think what I get from this is that there could have been a moment where they could have prevented this. He was clearly addicted to cocaine. Somebody could have gotten him the help he needed before it got to the point where his aggression and his anger took the life of Nancy Argentino. I think we got to remember this is the story of Nancy Argentino too, as much as it is of Jimmy Snuka, because she wasn't a wrestler. And to many other than her family, she just kind of got forgotten. I'm glad that this documentary brings up her name again and brings up who she was and a little bit of the story, because so many times in crimes, the victim is just the victim. They don't portray them as a person. They don't portray them as somebody that had a family, somebody that left people behind, and they focus so much on the criminal. They focus so much on the crime.
And nowadays, with conventions and the industry, what she was a handler. Yeah. She was like when cosplayers have a handler, you get somebody from one place to another. They're interviewed, make sure that they're where they need to be. She was his handler, and for all the credit, she was not a wife. You know what I mean? She didn't have the title that she deserved to have, the respect she deserved to have from the industry and from the people in his life and the people in the wrestlers. It goes I was telling him that I felt that women, with Benoit, I felt like Miss Elizabeth, these were people that, women was in the industry, but nobody really took care of these women in the industry. And Miss Elizabeth, Yeah, she fell in love with Macho Man, but she was taken from a world and thrown into another one, and people were influencing her instead of being like, and some people they're just vindictive, like, oh, this is funny, small town girl, quiet, and they think it's fun. And you guys know that there's people out there like that. And it's sad that there was three stories, women at the heart of it, and who all perished. And it's sad to say like that. Yeah,
drugs and wrestling.
Drugs and wrestling, man, and women. It's like God. It was horrible.
Yeah, and what's unfortunate too is that they want you to forget about them. They don't,
shouldn't be
because with Benoit, they erased him from WWE, but not only did they erase him, they erased her too, because like they don't even mention her. She's not in the Hall of Fame. She's never brought up as an influential star that she was, and it's just, it goes back to, at this time, unfortunately, it was boys will be boys.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like. Like, oh, well, this is just what the guys did. They snorted some coke and beat up their girl, and everybody just kept quiet about it. Everybody knew in the back, but nobody actually ever stepped in. I mean, the one time that somebody did step in was Chris Benoit, and then he ended up. So it's just mental health, man.
Mental health, teaching young men at a young age what you shouldn't be doing. And it's like, it's one thing to drink. You can drink, but don't drink and be violent. Men under the influence have a tendency to look for things that are weaker because they had to fill this gauge. If you want to look more into domestic violence and people who have been infected by this, Dave Navarro from Jane's Addiction does a lot of work in there. He was the victim of domestic violence. His mother was killed, by an ex, and it traumatized him.
Morning Sun is a really good documentary.
It's a very good documentary, but it goes heart to heart around the same time period, early 90s, late 80s, I think it was. Maybe even before that, I'm sorry. I'm making Dave probably younger. It was probably early 80s. Around that time. Around the same time period where men got a pass. And it goes back to everything we say about wrestling. Things were okay during Attitude Era and during these things, but when you look back at it, it wasn't right. It wasn't just because we're PC now. It's because it's respecting one another. It's okay to make a joke. There's tasteful jokes. You can still jab at somebody. You can still make fun out of somebody. You can still attack people and do things, in the ring. But it's just there's limits now. And I hope there's no wrestlers right now in NXT, WWE, anybody, Stardom that is going through domestic violence or feeling victimized by somebody that they're with. Because there is help out there for you. And that's my takeaway from all this, is that all three women in these stories, Benoit's, Macho Man's, and Nancy's, was all victims of domestic violence, and the men were under an influence.
Yeah.
So that's my bottom line. I'm probably going to put Dave Navarro's link in there somewhere. But,
I mean, we can't say the word because YouTube is censoring the word.
Yeah.
But with what's going on, and with people having to stay at home, take a moment to think about people that are in domestic violence and relationships that now they have to be with that person 24/7. There is no escape. There's no, oh, well, at least I get 8 hours when he goes to work or anything like that. They're put in a very hard situation.
24/7. Yeah, bubble.
So just think about them for a second.
Be conscious when you guys make those jokes, like, when my husband, I'm gonna kill him sooner or later, like it's it's not tasteful. You know what I mean? It's not a tasteful joke because there's people out there that are going through this time period, and it's hard, and not just hard on a level where it's like everybody's feeling it. No, it's hard because every day it's walking on eggshells for them, trying to keep their kids or themselves safe.
And it's not just women that go through domestic violence. Think about the kids. Think about husbands are also in domestic violence situations. So don't always just assume that it's always the guy.
Always reach out.
Majority of the time it is, but...
No, there's guys that are victims, but, society stigmatizes them, shames them. So,
if... Just for a moment, just think about them. Reach out to charities that you could help for them.
Even just to be a voice, be an activist, just share. And just be on the right side of history. This is just tragedy. So
if you're a wrestler and you're going through some substance abuse, reach out. Don't become the next Dark Side of the Ring story.
Yeah, please. We don't need a really updated one.
No,
from a recent wrestler.
There's people that are willing to help. So just reach out. Don't let substances take your life and take your dreams.
Yeah, it's not worth it. But yeah, that was a really deep one to watch because it started like the snowball was here and it just went straight down. There was no happy moments. There was no reflection on his career. It just was, you heard the guy and the guy just wasn't great all around
and
almost.
He never, like in the beginning, he admits that he shoved her to the cops and all that stuff. And then I guess, I don't know if he started wising up or somebody got to him and told him stop saying that. And then the story changed that she fell after coming out of the washroom. And then when he wrote his book, he just played it off like she was just
a bad person.
Yeah, that she was the one that was messing with his marriage and just kind of like wrote her off. There was never a reflection, never any justice for the family.
And I'm not saying his last wife, you were not in the wrong for believing him, that he was a good person because you could have met a good person. So you should not be bullied or victimized or stigmatized by this either. Somebody with a criminal justice background, just thinking about all the serial killers who had normal lives. Yeah. So forget that they are also victims. And she herself is a victim. She might not know that and she might never one day come to terms with that. But she didn't know the full story of her husband, and until the day he wrote that book, she says, are you sure you want to put that in there? Because something was itching at her. She knew what he was putting in there wasn't great, and that's a reflection on her conscience telling her that. And it's sad. And so like I said, I'm not saying their marriage wasn't good. But don't bully her too because she was the last wife. Yeah. She doesn't deserve that either.
Because you brought up a good point. The Green River.
Yeah,
killer.
He went on the road.
Yeah, he had a wife. He was a trucker, and she never knew that when he was on the road, he was murdering people.
She never once in her day thought of that. Her husband victimizing women. Yeah. And when you see the interview with her, she's shooken to the point where it's like it almost looks like she doesn't even want to be alive because she has these memories of a man that she thinks.
Yeah, so you don't know everybody fully, and we're not comparing Snuka to a serial killer.
We're not. We're just saying I feel bad because when I was on Twitter, I saw people attacking his last wife. Yeah. She doesn't deserve that either. Like you understand, you can't bully other people. You're doing bad again.
Yeah, because
she doesn't deserve that.
Because you don't know somebody, especially.
And he could have changed. But he can't face it.
He could have reflected from that whole situation,
but he couldn't face it.
And he couldn't. And sometimes your brain ends up guarding you for yourself, and maybe eventually he ended up believing the story that he didn't do anything to her, and in his mind he probably felt like I didn't do anything to her because remember he was constantly under the influence of cocaine. Yeah, and
he might vaguely remember what happened.
Don't bully his family. Don't bully Tamina. Don't bully
his kids.
They're not responsible for what happened. And that's all we have.
Yeah. No. So I forgot which one's coming up next for the new season.
Oh yeah, it looked good too. I forgot, but we're gonna be reviewing.
Von Erichs? No. Was that last season?
Nah, I don't remember.
But I know we're gonna do the screw job with Brad.
Yeah, Montreal screw job is the next episode.
So we're gonna go back, but we will be reviewing next week's new episode. Yep. But that's about it. Stay healthy. We'll see you next time.
Stay safe.